Welcome to the live lounge here at PF International. I'm your host, Chris McCarthy. Now, we've had plenty of previous winners coming in throughout the day. We're going to move aside slightly from that, and we're going to get a little bit of tips from someone who knows a lot about social media and marketing for you, the drivers watching back at home. Pleased to say Simon Stoneham of Sector Marketing has joined me. Simon, thank you very much for taking the time to join me. I know you're very busy here with some of the drivers you work with this weekend. Of course, a former driver yourself, racing in Senior X30. So how is it being here so far this weekend? It's your first time here at Kartmasters as well, right?
Yeah, first time here at the event. It's busy, to say the least, but it's great to see, the event that everyone keeps on talking about, and yeah, I've had lots of great chats with some great people, and it's great to see so many amazing young talents on track.
Lives up to the expectations, what everyone says when you get
absolutely.
Yeah?
Beyond.
Yeah, certainly so. Now, of course, you run Sector Marketing, which you set up this year off the back of a lot of success in your working social media. Here at Kartmasters, we're all about going the extra mile. Thought we'd get you in really to try and give drivers and viewers of the channel some tips on social media if they're racing for their racing accounts back at home. So just tell us a little bit about, for drivers when they're setting up accounts, some basic tips first of all getting started.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the initial thing from the outset is, remember it's your account, and it's all about portraying yourself in, the best way, but always being honest to yourself. There's a lot of pressure around social media at the moment, and for the young drivers in such a busy space, which motorsport is, winning the race off track is as important as it is winning it on track. And with my clients, that's really what we try to do. So we really aim to set the foundations online for the drivers to be able to build their platform, build their brand, and really showcase their talent on what hopefully one day becomes a massive platform for them.
And so I guess with what you do is you take the stress of that away from drivers, and that's essentially what your business is doing.
Exactly, yeah. So obviously one element of the business is on the social media front, and it's exactly that. The drivers are here busy, especially at a weekend like this. Many drivers are jumping between Junior X30, Junior Road Tax, and they don't have time to be updating their social media or putting out the content that those people who aren't at the event want to see. So as a business, we step in, we put that infrastructure in place for the drivers across the weekend, so they don't have to worry about that. That's all covered by us and the team in-house.
Well, let's give some tips then in terms of working the account. So do you think you have to be represented across all accounts? Tell us a little bit about how you think it has to be approached.
The main thing for the drivers is always to have a strategy in place. So consistency is key. It's key on the track and it's key online. If you're posting once a week, that's great. But the more you can put out, you don't need to flood the page. Mix of content, and the content that a lot of drivers like is the paddock content. Shots in the paddock always go down well, but also taking a step back from the track and looking at what goes on behind the scenes. I'm fortunate enough to work with a lot of young drivers through some programs, and seeing the training off the track is amazing online, because then it's really reflective of what they can achieve on the track, and showing that third dimension to the driver is really important nowadays to separate them.
I mean, we get some excellent shots of the drivers on the track and around the paddock from people like Chris Walker, who we just saw walking here now of Car Picks. How do we do that away from the circuit? Is it as easy as just taking something off your phone?
I think so. I don't think, there's not many people who have professional photography equipment at home, so it's making do with the resources you have, and always, again, nobody expects you to have professional grade photography if you're training in the gym at home. But we're fortunate enough these days to have TikTok, Instagram Reels, and taking advantage of all of them little things is essential.
So you feel that all of those extra elements to social media platforms need to be taken advantage of?
I think so. The people who work at the top of these big social media companies put these things in place for a reason, and I think the success which businesses see through promoting on TikTok is the same for what individuals can see, especially in motorsport nowadays, with the industry and the entertainment side of the industry growing so rapidly. It's important that those drivers trying to make a name for themselves and improve their brand take advantage of these things.
And how important is it growing your brand as you try and progress up into the, because I know you work with drivers not only in karting but in cars as well. How important is it when you're trying to step up into the next ladder of the sport?
It's essential. I mean, to get to the top in motorsport often requires a heavy degree of sponsorship, and to attract those sponsors, it's very important to have a well-rounded brand and be very well polished. At the end of the day, the driver needs to look at themselves as a brand to some extent and promote themselves in such a way. So by taking advantage of all the things available and really progressing their social media with their career, so taking the viewers on that journey is somewhat essential.
And do we start this from cadets, would you say?
I think it's down to the driver really as to when they want to get into it, but I think the way and the direction that motorsport and social media are going, the sooner you can jump on the bandwagon, the better.
Is there any accounts out there that you've looked at of racing drivers and gone, that's an inspiring social media profile?
Absolutely. I think you look at the top of motorsport, but you also then look in the paddock. I know one of the drivers that I work with through one of the programs, they've created some incredible content this week where they've done some fun brake tests and challenges at a track, and
I think I know who you're on about,
mixing
actually.
up the content, it's great. It's fantastic to see something different on your feed every now and then. It puts a smile on the audience's faces, and that's what them great social media accounts do. Even looking outside of motorsport, there are some accounts which people choose to scroll by, and there are some that they look at and then they look further, and that's what we try and do for all of our drivers. We want people to see their posts and then want to dig in further, and that's how we ideally like to turn that into sponsorship for our drivers.
And away from social media, do you think websites and things like that, is that something that people, when they're able to, should look into?
I think on the website front, it's not as essential as having, a well-polished Instagram, Facebook and Twitter account. But I think as you progress perhaps towards the senior ranks of karting and perhaps taking that step from karting into cars, then a website to promote yourself for sponsors and market your brand is essential.
And so, before I ask you our question of the day, if people want a bit of a help with this, can they come to you? And if so, how can they come to you?
Absolutely. We've got a great team growing in the business now. So, you can find us on social media at sector.marketing, or you can find us on our website, which is sector-marketing.co.uk.
Simon, thanks very much for all of that advice, really sound advice. Question of the day time. So let's move away from social media entirely now. It's time for you to talk racing a little bit in terms of what you would like to race. So our question of the day to all the drivers we're putting it to, if you could go back, I know it's your first time at Kartmasters, so if you could go and race at any Kartmasters in any class, which would it be and why?
I think this year's going to be hard to top, but if I was to have to look back, the one that I've had the most conversations about would have to be 2014. And probably jumping in the Minimax class. I think some of the names, going back with the names at the top of karting when I started, and when you're watching it on YouTube back in the day, they were the drivers I'd look out for. So yeah, probably 2014.
There was a great commentator that year as well, I heard.
Apparently so.
Good stuff. Simon, thanks very much for joining us. Thanks for all the advice. It's really appreciated by all the viewers, I'm sure. So thanks for taking the time to speak to us. And have a great weekend here at Kartmasters.
Thank you.